I want to talk about CPD, but I want to talk about measuring your CPD. Now, I'm into measuring. I'm a big measurement guy. I have KPIs, key performance indicators, metrics, all sorts of things in my business. If you run a mortgage business, you'll have metrics for everything to run the business. You know, profits, volatility, risk. You'll have numbers of meetings. All sorts of things get measured, don't they? Cancellation numbers, best advice, suitability report checks. You measure everything, and you should do as well. Good business people do. But the question to you really is, do you measure CPD? Yes, you probably measure the number of hours, and I'll talk about that in a second, because that's easy, isn't it, really? But do you properly measure its effectiveness? That's really where I'm coming from here. Now, when it comes to CPD or self-development, let's give it its proper title, really. There's two types, really, of self-development. There's DIY, and there's via a mentor, as I'll call it now. That's the new buzzword now, isn't it? Two ways of getting CPD. Now, DIY is pretty self-explanatory. That's, of course, you doing it yourself. You know, reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading blogs, reading periodicals, old-fashioned newspapers, magazines, updating yourself naturally yourself. You know, there's lots of DIY going on, and that's pretty cheap. It's only your time involved. You can pretty much get any learning you want for free on the internet. YouTube's full of it. You could sign up and pay a bit of money if you wanted to and get some quality stuff. But we have our weekly CPD emailer, we have this live stream, we have free podcasts, we've got a load of free stuff, you know, because that's the way of the world. The DIY is pretty okay. And if you don't measure that, apart from the number of hours that you carried out for, that's fine. And that's okay. But if you have your development via a mentor. Now, when I say mentor now, it's a collective phrase now. Everyone's into mentor. I've got a mentor. A mentor is a coach, is a manager maybe, is a supervisor, if you want the fancy word for it. It's somebody who is facilitating your learning. That's pretty much what a mentor is. A trainer maybe in the old days. Me, maybe I'm your mentor. It'd be lovely if I was. I obviously strive to do that because that's how I make my living. Now, if you get your mentor involved, a coach, supervisor, trainer, whatever, it gets expensive. You know, you've got somebody else's salary to pay for. So there, you have got to measure its effectiveness. You've got to. There's no other way of doing it. So it's an acute problem then that needs to be solved. So how do you do it then? How do you measure your mentor-based CPD? I've got 6 or 7 ideas for you. First of all, let's just give a different colour here for you. It's dead easy to use the hours in which you are operating from. How many hours do you conduct? You know, you measure it 50 hours, 36 hours, 15 hours, whatever your regulatory requirements are, some 100 hours. It all depends on you. It's dead easy. You can record it on your systems, and you should do. Get a computerized system to record your CPD, the number of hours and what you did. If you're into heavy regulatory environment, then you'll probably want to have learning objectives and all sorts of outcomes written down, but that's just compliance people just going over the top bit really. But you just really do need to measure the number of hours that you carry out. And it's not a difficult thing to do, but that's only the quantity. That doesn't actually measure the effectiveness. Now here's the best one for you. What you want to do is set yourself some CPD goals. That's what you want to do. You want to set yourself some CPD goals annually, do it in your annual goals, and then break them down into quarters and then months if you wish to as well. And if you set yourself a CPD goal, then you'll do some CPD to fix the goal, to achieve the goal, and then you can measure it because it's quite easy. Have I learnt the topic? Yes, I have. Am I able to now achieve my goal? Yes, you can. You've measured it. It's not difficult. Now, just to give you an example, I use a lot of video, as you know, and I do a lot of live stuff as well. And right now, I'm appearing on this camera. I've got you over there on the camera lens. It's all switched on and working, and I'm presenting from my whiteboard. So all is well. But when I do live workshops, I have different camera angles. I've got a camera angle over there, over here. I've got different shared screens, all sorts of things going on because that's what you do. Now, I bought myself a new gadget, so I set myself a learning goal, CPD goal, on how to master this gadget called the Elgato Stream Deck. I'll show you it. It's really smart, actually. I don't know if you're into your gadgets. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that on your camera? Oh, I can't show it from you at the angle. It's stopping. There you go. No, you can't see it. I'll send you a photograph. It's called an Elgato Stream Deck. It's tethered over there to a desk on my dashboard here, and it comprises of 15 little keys. And the idea is you put shortcuts on each key, so you can switch camera with a key press, share screen with a key press. You can go to chat box with a screen, a little press, rather than faffing around. Now, my goal was to master this in live situations so that it was seamless. So if I wanted to change the camera angle, I would just press the button and go to another camera angle. So that was my goal. So I had to learn how to do it. And I got some videos, I watched some stuff, and I learned it. And last week before I went to Cornwall, I tried it and it worked, and it was pretty seamless. I was pretty impressed. So I achieved my goal. That's the point. I measured my CPD by having a goal in the first place that I then learnt to deal with that goal. That's pretty straightforward stuff, that, isn't it? The other thing you could look at doing is the number of coaching sessions that you have. Now, this is where your mentor comes into their own, really. The number of coaching sessions that you set up and achieve. Okay, it is quantifiable, I get that, but I'll share with you another issue in a moment. But if you've got a mentor who might be a formal one, might be a supervisor or a line manager or somebody, they will want to do coaching with you. Now, coaching's brilliant. I love coaching, and I love doing coaching as well. You rock up for about an hour, 45 minutes, online, using Zoom. Don't faff about jumping in cars anymore and driving off somewhere to meet up. You don't need to do that. The world's moved on. So go on Zoom so you can do some coaching. Now, the coaching might be observing you doing a mortgage meeting with a client. It might be any kind of observation, if you like, of what you're doing. Now, that's a measure by how many of those you do. They're 60 minutes a pop, maybe 45 minutes, 60 minutes a pop. And you do different numbers for different advisors. I've got a client who are taking on some new mortgage advisors at the moment. So we're doing weekly coaching sessions once a week with those guys for a couple of months. And then once they've got better at it and we've achieved the standards, we might do one a month. But you need to measure duration, number of those. Now, to measure the effectiveness of those, I use what's called a skills score. A skills score. Now, I like a skills score. The beauty of a skills score is that you can not only measure the number of coaching you do, but you can measure the effectiveness of the coaching. Because the coaching is only going to be measured by how better you're getting at the job. How good are you now at the role that you're carrying out? And all good coaches will have an observation aid of some description. The observation aid will be something which has a number of key competencies that he or she wants you to show them to a certain degree of competence. So when I'm doing coaching and I'm observing somebody doing a mortgage meeting, for example, if it's a fact find they're doing with the client, and I'm fed up to the back teeth of people just filling in forms and calling it a fact find, that's nonsense. A client could do that themselves online, can't they? A proper fact find is a decent discussion, good questioning, good listening, really taking an interest in the customer's future, their goals, their ambitions, those sort of things. That's a decent fact find. So I'd have like questioning skills, sugarcoating skills, listening skills, all those things. And I'll gauge how good they are at it. And I'll tick a box. And I'll put a cross in the box so they don't do it. And I have a score here, 80%, for example. They need to be 80% of all boxes. If they don't achieve 80%, they haven't reached the standard. The whole point about coaching is if they don't reach the standard, you coach them, you show them how to do it, you give them some training or whatever it is. But as a coach, I do that for you, I take responsibility. That's known as a skills score, I like that, because it just measures how effective they are. And if you keep people up to speed with that, then they are maintaining the standard. But don't get all compliancy with that. Okay, I'll have all the compliance officers in the world now shouting me down, but I don't mind. Don't get all compliancy. Don't make that skills score compliance stuff. Disclosure, suitability report, risk assessment. That's great. You've got to do that. Of course you have it. And have some separate bod do that if you want to, where they observe or listen to calls or whatever and regularly check compliance. You need to do that. It's called a risk assessment. And if somebody's not being compliant, they need to be stopped straight away and sorted out, dealt with. This isn't compliance. It doesn't actually, there's skills involved, of course, in compliance. Of course there are, but it doesn't test for that. It tests for skills. This is the communication skills, the ability to talk to people We've forgotten how to do that, you know, how to talk to people, how to communicate, how to run a proper fact find. It's not a compliance exercise. Rant over. Okay, the last one for you, let's squeeze this one down here for you, is a knowledge test. There you go. A knowledge test, which is pretty much self-explanatory. The problem with this one though is people take a shortcut and they just do a multiple choice test or something like that. I'm not asking for that. I'm talking about some other way of testing the advisor has got the knowledge in whatever it is they've been learning. So for example, I was working for a client recently and we were talking about competitor analysis. In other words, learn about your competitors. Because everyone's got competitors. Learn about competitors and analyse them, their strengths and weaknesses, so that you can talk about them, that's all. And we did a presentation. We had a little sort of team meeting online and everybody had to do a 5-minute presentation, simple as that, on the outcomes of their project. And they all had a great deal of fun with that. Maybe it wasn't fun, but they all did it. Now that's a great test. Okay, it's not a multiple choice test. You don't have to have multiple choice tests for everything. You do because compliance people like them because it's easy to measure and easy to do. But no, a presentation at a team meeting is just as good. So look at other ways of testing knowledge. Now these things work really well to measure success. You do this and your CPD will come alive. It will start to mean something to you. You'll start to get value for the time and effort you're putting in. And if you're paying for a coach, and by the way, the world has moved on now. In the old days, mentors or line managers or whatever came with the company you worked for. You know, you signed up with NatWest for the rest of your life and they assigned you a line manager and she would do all that for you for free. Wasn't really free, but it was. Nowadays, you've got to do it yourself. It's DIY. So even though DIY is up the top there, if you buy a mentor, hire a coach or use somebody, you got to pay them money. Good money, because staff costs, people cost money. You can automate it if you want to. There are online apps, coach apps. My mate Fred's got one. He's got a great app, which is an online coach. And I love all those things. But if you want to buy a person, it costs money. So make sure that the outcomes are really good. That's the key rationale to that one as well. I hope that's been useful.